Welcome back, everybody, to yet another Early Childhood Chats podcast. I'm so excited that you're with us today. Andy Roszak here with you as always. And today I'm joined by Dr. Carlina Vaden, who is just an outstanding individual, over 30 years in the field. She's done a lot of interesting stuff. We're going to get into it today, talking about quality, talking about leadership, just really reflecting on some of the challenges, some of the unique things that we're seeing in our industry. And Dr. Vaden, thank you so much for being with us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited about this conversation and just talking about, the things that we face and see in this field of ours.
So give folks a little introduction, give them a little background. You've got a really diverse educational journey from political science and leadership and all sorts of good stuff. Tell us how you ended up here in the happy field of early childhood and some of the passions that you have.
Okay, so hello everyone. Yes, I am Dr. Carlina Vaden. And yes, my journey to this point has been interesting. So I started off in with my bachelor's. I went to Morgan State. I started off actually in philosophy. But then I switched to political science my freshman year, like half my freshman year. I switched to political science. I always wanted to do something with families and work with kids. I just needed to see what that looked like. And so I did political science. And when I finished and graduated from Morgan, I actually went into the classroom, into early ed. I went to started teaching 2-year-olds. My first experience in the classroom was so interesting as a 2-year-old teacher. And so then I matriculated within the program to a kindergarten teacher. And once I got to the kindergarten level, I said, I think I want to know more on the leadership side. I want to know more of how this looks leadership wise. So I went to Strayer and got my master's in educational leadership. Well, education with a concentration in management. And so from there, I was like, oh, I really, really loved it. I soaked up all the information. And so from there, I went and did my doctoral studies with North Central, and I got my doctoral degree in educational leadership. So with that, I started my company in 2017, educational consulting firm, where I do professional development within different states, and I travel. So I do teacher trainings, I do leadership trainings, I speak at conferences, I do team building, class observations, using the class tool, but I also do class observations for coaching as well. With the state of Maryland, I do accreditation visits within the state. So I've been a principal of schools, I've been directors of centers. So I've been in a gamut of different things within the ECE field. And what I saw and what I'm most passionate about in the field is giving every child the best experience that they can have. And I'm like, okay, I can't physically be in every classroom, but I can reach the teachers who are in the various classrooms to give them the information so that they can give those students and their kids the best experience that they can have. So that's what led me to the professional development side.
I love it. I love it. It's a very political science approach where we say, gosh, I can't impact every single person, but I can make a policy that can
Right.
maybe impact, right? I enjoy it.
Right.
So I know part of the stuff that you talk about with Divine Illumination Agency is really looking at how everybody's unique, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm,
those learning habits of each student, we got to be cognizant of that because
mhm,
look, I learn differently than you and differently than other people, and that's just
mhm,
the way it is.
mhm.
What are some of the strategies to kind of embrace that approach to understand the uniqueness of each child with the challenges of, hey, I've got a curriculum, I got to follow some things,
Mhm.
but where are those opportunities to kind of customize it and have that personal touch so
Mhm.
that kids can really learn in their own unique way?
Mhm. So the best strategy to teach to all students is really that relationship based approach, understanding who you have in your program. Just like in families, every child is different. In the classroom, it's the same way. And so, having conversations, talking to them, seeing them in play, seeing what they gravitate towards allows you to see how to tailor your curriculum. So you can have a structured curriculum that it's handed to you, right? You can have a structured curriculum, but it doesn't say anything about you can't add to it and make additions and to support the students in your classroom. So you may have a broad theme for the week. But that theme, let's say your theme is spring or summer. But that theme can lead into different discoveries. So you can talk about butterflies and insects and flowers and plants and pollen and trees. You can talk about these broad things within your base curriculum based on your students in your program. And so you can tailor that to some students, really, really are those kinesthetic learners. So they thrive in getting their hands dirty, making those mud flower art projects. And some students are like, this is too much sensory overload. I am good with reading about it. Right. So you can lend those students to the visual aspect of reading and learning about it just by hearing it, and they can experience it that way. And so making sure that you're tailoring different projects and ideas to the gamut of learners is really easy, but the easy part is the intentionality of it. You have to be intentional to do it, and that's the easy part.
Yeah, well, it definitely requires some thought and some
Mhm.
effort, right?
Mhm.
And I know that it's been a challenging few years to say the least,
Mhm.
right? I mean,
Yes,
coming
yes.
after the pandemic, so many, I don't even know what the right word is, deregulated, dysregulated, unregulated kids, combined with probably, and I'll lean on your expertise here, but
Mhm.
probably the worst staffing shortage we've seen in early childhood,
Mhm.
maybe ever.
Mhm. Mhm.
So what are you seeing some effective ways to kind of keep your eye on the prize,
Mhm.
but still manage to get through some of the day-to-day challenges that we all do face?
Mhm. Um, yeah, the pandemic hit everyone in, especially in the early ed department, in a gamut of ways, from changing ratios, from expectations of what to do in the classroom. What can we now do? What can't we now do? But when you're looking at it from the leadership side of it, one thing I would say is to, in building your staff, you have to create, just like in the classroom, that relationship based approach. You have to create a space where your staff feel secure and welcomed. So not only do they feel like, okay, this is where I can do what I am learning, but this is a place where I can thrive, meaning my leadership wants to see me grow. It's not just they want to keep me in the classroom and not learn anything. No, I want to push you to be the best teacher that you can be. And not even your teacher, your assistant. I want to push them to do your job, right? So one day everybody can take over my job and we can continue to grow in the field. So I would say creating, where we can start is creating an environment where everybody is pushed to thrive. um and in that, it is creating that same kind of relationship based approach with your staff, having being that transformative leader, having that ability where staff can come to you and say, I'm confused, or I'm really struggling with this. What can I do? How can you help, without feeling less than or like a burden, or my supervisor may not want to hear this, but they can feel like, oh, my supervisor will come and show me how I can do this, what they expect from me. I'm having a challenging time with this particular issue. How can you support me in it? And so I think that is where that support can come in to retain the teachers that you have. And in that retention, the teachers will tell other teachers that they know, like, this is the best place to be. Like, my supervisor is the best supervisor. The leadership is wants to see us do well. And so then you have a referral versus you on the hunt for staff. And that can be challenging because when you get to the point where you're on the hunt for staff, you aren't necessarily looking for quality, you're looking for quantity. You're looking just for numbers and people to cover ratio versus the quality of what they bring to the program.
That's such a good point, and you don't want to be known as kind of that program, right? Because people do talk, as you and I both know.
Yes.
So creating that positive environment, and it's
Mm-hmm.
so exciting when you get into one of those environments, because I do feel like positivity really invokes other positivity. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost
Mm-hmm.
kind of a self-fulfilling thing at some point, which is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very interesting to see so many different generations in play right now. And I know that
Mm-hmm.
you do focus some on the generational aspects of leadership and how, look, when you and I grew up, things are a little bit different now.
Right,
And I
right.
say that as a loving professor over at Old Dominion. I get to deal with some of the next generation of leaders,
Mm-hmm.
and they're very different. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not a criticism, that's just a reality. It's,
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a time without the internet, and it came when I was in high school. But now you look at Chat GPT and all
Yes.
this kind of stuff that's
Mm-hmm.
out
Mm-hmm.
there. And I don't necessarily want to say it's making people lazier, but I
Mm-hmm.
do think it's changing the way that people view assignments, view written assignments,
Mm-hmm.
view their workload and kind of their daily life, plus
Mm-hmm.
the ever presence of social media and chasing likes and thumbs up and hearts
Mm-hmm.
and all of this kind of stuff, and of course the spotlight always being on me as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, from a generational standpoint, what are some of the tips that you can give to kind of recognize, I guess, is maybe the first step, recognize we're all a little bit different in the way we were raised and the age and how we came
Mm-hmm.
about.
Mm-hmm.
But what are you seeing as far as the generational divide that's out there, and how do we conquer some of that?
So, I think so. Some of the things that I've seen in when it comes to the generational divide is just that, a divide, and looking at it as like, oh, I am a seasoned teacher. I've been doing this for 80 years, so I know the way. And then you have this younger generation or newer generation that's coming and teaches like, oh, I have all of these ideas, there's so many things we can do. And then you come into heads like this, like, I know it, and then I have some new ideas. And so what can soften that cohesion is leadership, right? Leadership using their tool and strategies and connecting the two in the classroom. So yes, you may have a seasoned teacher that may know everything back everything, they know what they learned um when they learned it. But as everything, the field has evolved so much research has gone on, even just within the last few years, even when it comes to social emotional, that connection. So even with that, the field has evolved. So when we are integrating generations into our program and into our with our teachers, we have to do it in the aspect of we are coming together versus somebody feels like they're being replaced. And so when we do that, it's like a gentle collaboration that we have to do, because this new generation, they're coming in with all of their ideas, and they're going nonstop for what they deem the old ways of doing things. Um, and so they're like, no, there's new ways we can do it differently. We can do it quicker, faster, better. And then you have the older generations like, I'm not used to using this technology tool, this iPad to do name the face, this is all new to me. So like they delegate certain things that they don't want to do versus learning new tips and tricks. So as leaders, we need to make sure that when we are infusing these generations together, that we express that it's going to be a dynamic impact to the classroom. So not only would we benefit from it as adults and teachers, we learn from each other. So the new school can learn some more traditional ways, and then the traditional ways can definitely learn some more new ways, but the children will benefit from both ways. Um, and so just taking it from that approach in leadership will ease the collision of the generations in the classroom.
Well, it's certainly not easy, that's for sure.
No, not at all. It's not an easy thing, but I think if you look at it, it's your perspective. If you
Sure.
look at it from the view of, okay, we're doing this, and think of we're being on the forefront of it. Like if you give it to them, like we're going to be on the forefront of this thing. Now, there may be struggles. It may not be easy. You may get frustrated, just like with things in life. But once we work through our kinks, you're going to feel confident, just like you have your students when they struggle, when they feel like, oh, I can't learn this, or they're having troubles using those little scissors and different things like that. And we encourage them and we scaffold them and we push them to be better. And then they say, yay, I did it. And we're all excited. That's the same kind of reaction and reflection that we should have as adults. And we should give to our staff as leaders.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And being
Mhm.
purposeful about it. And I think also just recognizing, hey, conflict is part of life, right?
Yeah.
It's going to exist. So let's not
Mhm.
try to beat around the bush, but let's address it. Let's figure out what's causing the
Right.
conflict and move
Mhm.
on, I suppose, right?
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah.
um,
If you address conflict, conflict for some is a bad word. No, no conflict. No, conflict promotes growth,
right.
right? When you have those things that take a lot of time, or you got to work with or use your hands a little bit more, they become the most beautiful things at times. So that conflict and that tension may create the best product. So if you just tackle it head on as opposed to avoidance, then you're bound to come up with something special.
Well, and I've been reading a bunch. I actually had a chance to read the new Oprah Winfrey book, I guess it was, and
Mhm,
I'm blanking on the co-author's name. He's a great guy, a professor over at Harvard, and just talking about what makes people happy, right?
mhm, mhm,
And one of the things is kind of like we're just talking about. Some of this stuff you have to actually put the time and effort in
mhm,
to get satisfied and to get a little closer to being happy. These
mhm.
easy wins, so to speak, they're not usually fulfilling. They're not usually
Right.
sustaining. They don't usually make us happy, or they might make us happy for an hour, a day, a week. But I think about just my own personal life. Some of the times I've been the most happy has been after that big effort was put
Mhm,
in, and maybe there was failure along the way and
mhm,
all that kind of good
mhm,
stuff. But kind of earning it was
mhm,
really important to be fulfilled and be happy. And
mhm,
I think you're right. A lot of times, folks are, especially when we're so busy, and you and I both know a lot of programs are just struggling day to day to make
mhm,
ratio and keep the doors open and do
mhm,
all these things. I do get worried that we're not having the opportunity, the time, the space, the thought, the opportunity just to think
mhm,
about how we allow these more meaningful conversations and how we can be more kind of purposeful about engagement of our staff and, of course, engagement of the kids in our care.
mhm.
Have you seen programs kind of struggling with that kind of day to day, just almost just trying to stay above water and not drown and kind of missing the bigger picture on some of this stuff? Or what has your experience been like with that?
So I have noticed, especially when the main thing when the COVID shift hit and we were figuring it out what this looked like. And then now post COVID, and figuring this out what it looks like. So now like the training requirements are different, and um the level of education, people are seeking, more education nowadays. So what does that look like, for my program if um on the leadership side, some leaders have said, so what does that look like for my program if my teachers need or want more education, but the hours that they're given for education kind of overlap the hours that they need to work? What does that do for, my program?
Yeah.
And so some of the things that I've coached leaders on is to not make the staff suffer. You have to make adjustments on our end, on the leadership side, right? And that's part of our job as leaders. So if we are communicative with, if we're in the center, or if we're home providers, if we're communicative with our families, and we're like, okay, so we have some teachers that are going to leave at a certain time to do some more training, or they'll be out this week for training. No parent is going to say, oh no, have them stay. I don't want my teacher to get better and to learn more information, right? So how can you get those parents to even help or get involved and say, oh, okay, well, that may be around the time we wanted to take a vacation. So knowing that my student's teacher will be out, maybe I'll take a vacation this week. And that can change, that helps with your ratio,
Yeah.
right? But having that, so you have to kind of think outside of the box, but having those open dialogues with all parties, not getting down into the nitty gritty with the families of the center operations, but being more transparent, um, can provide opportunities for that, that continued growth, and can make some stress come off of us as leaders in the program, because we're holding on to all of this information, and like it's just us, right? And we're trying to figure it all out. But if we can lean on our support system, that's everybody in the center, some other staff may say, oh, I can come in and do more hours to help cover this other person's shift on this time. Or, make it a group conversation, so that when you are when you feel like you're in a bind, or you're in a space where it's like, okay, how can I figure this out? I'm only one person and I can only go into one classroom, right? But two of my teachers may need to, or may want to do a class that starts at 6, but they get off at 6:30. So how can I rearrange? But you have to use your support system, with which are your families and your staff. But again, the only way that your staff are going to step up and support is if you created that relationship based approach with them, where they feel, when I need it, you'll do it for me too, versus I'm always doing you a favor and I never get any it's never reciprocated for the
Mm.
things that I need. So it all stems back to that relationship based approach.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I would tell you, as a parent of a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old, I would celebrate any teacher that's going to get more education. I'd be all in
Yes.
favor, and gosh, we'd even throw them a party when they graduated or got done, right? So,
Right. Mhm.
and it's interesting. We're both out here on the East Coast, and
Mhm.
obviously you're an instructor in Washington D.C., and D.C. has done some, I guess, unique is the best way to put it. They've talked a lot about some really unique qualifications for early childhood staff, including up to a bachelor's degree.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I got to tell you, as I travel around the country, people are always asking me, they said, how in the world is DC going to implement the bachelor's degree requirement when everybody's really struggling with staff, and the pay scale simply isn't there to support a bachelor's degree?
Mhm.
I don't know the answer to that, but I know it has been successful in
Mhm.
many programs in DC. Have you thought much about that, or have any opinions kind of on? I think we're both in agreement. We need to
Right.
raise the bar. We need to
Right.
raise the
Mhm.
standing of early childhood. It should
Mhm.
be parity with our school system. There's
Mhm.
no doubt about it.
Mhm.
Honestly, we do more important work, because look at the brain science, 0 to 5,
Yes.
90% of the brain.
Yes.
The
Yes.
pay scale should be reversed. We should be
Mhm.
getting paid the most, I think.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, our legislators or regulators that we don't always get that
Mhm.
recognition that is
Mhm.
deserved. And my skin crawls when people say, "Oh, you're just babysitting" or something like that.
Right.
You
Yes.
know, so, what do you think? Is there a way to kind of raise the visibility of the importance of the field, the importance of having an education? And I'm not taking away anything from the thousands and thousands of people that have been in this field for so many years without any type of degree.
Mhm.
I'm not
Mhm.
one of these people that think you need a degree for everything. And there's
Mhm.
great people working today in all sorts of fields that don't have
Mhm.
any quote unquote formal education, but they went to
Mhm.
the school of hard knocks, right? They learned it
Right.
on the street, and I
Mhm.
would trust them with my lives. But as we see in so many other industries, it seems like this bachelor's degree is kind of the standard that jurisdictions are trying to reach for. And
Mhm.
I'm struggling to see how we're going to get there as an industry when it's so hard to fill so many vacancies now and the pay scale simply doesn't support the cost of a 4-year education. I don't
Mhm.
know. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I don't know either. I have this my phrase with ECE is like you said, we are doing what I consider the most important part, right? Before they get to kindergarten, before they get to elementary school, they come in contact with us. So I always tell anybody that I teach that we are building brains. We are the brain architect of the children, right? So we get into their development before it even really happens. We are supporting their development. Um and so I'm like, we're really doing the hard work here. By the time they get to kindergarten, they should have these social emotional skills work, they're working on their social emotional, we're working on their cognitive development. And so I think the I think it is important. Education is definitely important, especially in our field that's ever evolving. I think the continuation of wanting to know more is a natural progression for an educator, right? We are all every day we want to know more, 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 more. That's the purpose of even what we do, what we strive to teach our students to continue to get more information. Um, I don't, I know that there are programs that even well prior to MSDE was offering even to get an associate. So they were
Yeah.
supporting teachers in that aspect to get an associate's if they were if it was in the field of early ed.
Yeah.
Um,
And certainly CDA has been
yeah,
supported over the
CDA,
years in
yeah,
many different
CDA.
jurisdictions. Yeah.
And so those kind of programs I'm like, yes, yes, make sure they stay. I want them to stay.
Right.
Um
Yeah.
and
What we don't want to do is spend all that time and effort getting them trained and then have them scooped up a year later by the public
by the
school
public
system
school,
or something,
exactly.
which
Exactly.
happens quite often,
Yes,
unfortunately. And it's
right.
been interesting in the bigger cities to kind of see how a lot of them are now starting to target the 4 and 5 year olds. And a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the Head Start programs in these big cities are saying, whoa,
Mm-hmm.
whoa, whoa, what? There's only so many 4 and 5 year olds to go around here, you all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
I
which kind
think
of leaves us, focused on the 0 to 3, which is
mm-hmm.
one of the toughest populations, just
Mm-hmm.
developmental wise. So,
Mm-hmm. And I
um,
think that the if everyone saw the impact, right, because like you said, the money doesn't necessarily coincide with the education, right?
yeah,
And we do some hard work and we everybody wants to get paid for their work. But we do it at a sometimes at a detriment to us because we don't see always the compensation for the amount of work that we do. So I'm not sure. I think if it's not advertised, but if it's us as a community in the EC community, if the language that we only use the language that we only used to describe what we did was brain building or brain development, as opposed to we have child care centers, we have early learning centers, we have daycares,
yeah.
we have home care. The language that everyone used was brain development. Now the connotation of what I expect of it from an outsider looks totally different. It's not babysitting. So I think it's the language that we hold on ourselves in this community projects what people should expect from us. And so if we in the community begin to develop one language, this is what we're going to say we do. We are developing brains, right? This is our everybody's core work in this field. And we kept that as our standard. I think it will force people to see us in a different light.
I like it. It's a
Mhm.
rebranding.
Yeah,
I like that though.
exactly. Yeah. Hmm.
No, but I mean, and you think just you're right. I mean, it runs the gamut. And I mean, if you're really not in the industry, you don't even understand what's the difference between religious based and center based and home
Hmm.
based and what is
Hmm.
Head Start, what is early Head Start, what, you know, and
Hmm.
then you look over at the UK, they call them nurseries and like
Hmm. Hmm.
a
Hmm.
standard vocabulary. I think it would help to elevate the field. And I know we've been kind of skirting around the issue of quality, but quality's been a big part of your career. I mean, everything
Hmm.
from, looking at quality rating systems and of course, class observation and all
Hmm.
that. What are some of the big changes that you've seen just in terms of quality? We've been talking about quality for a long time. Do you
Hmm.
feel like we're finally getting to the point where programs are embracing quality and you're actually seeing meaningful change in the quality landscape?
I definitely have. Some it started off with the ICARDs and the ECARD systems. And then it's transition in different areas to using the class tool
Yeah.
to see quality, to really gauge quality and quantify it. Um, and I think when using starting with the ICARDs and ECARDs tool, once teachers really understood what that was and really understood what we were looking for, and then directors started to see, oh, wait, this is not happening, or I didn't know to ask these kind of questions. I didn't know to dive deeper into that. Oh, that makes sense. I should connect their home environment to their classroom environment to help them grow. I think it is changing the landscape of how teachers now engage to and be more intentional with the quality of the classroom. I've definitely gone into classrooms to do observations or to do coaching, and I'm like, I am so proud of this teacher. Like, there's been points like, this teacher did an excellent job. And then I've been in classrooms like, okay, I can see the growth. I can see where you can grow, right? I can see that you're on the cusp of something and that you just you need to be taught. So that's that education part. You need to be taught a little bit more. And then I've been in some classrooms where it's like, okay, there's work to be done here, right? It's it's more than just watching the students play. So it's more than just that. And so I think the elevation of the classroom expectations in quality has definitely grown because I've seen it in scoring and in coaching and going to do different visits. I've seen it. And it's like, it's exciting to see when teachers are pushing students, to that next level of quality. And you're asking them like the I wonder questions, and then the student may not know the answer right away. And then about 10 minutes later, they come back and say, oh, you know what? I think, they answered the question that you didn't realize that they were still thinking about, right? So that's that quality. Those are those quality kind of things that I think is happening and is growing. But I think that it needs to be just continue to be explained more on the leadership side. So when leaders are going into the classroom just to do a traditional observation of their staff, make sure they have that same expectation of quality as opposed to just making sure the room flows smoothly. But in your professional development settings, when you have your teacher meetings or something like that, making sure those quality standards are hit every time will make sure that shift happens in all programs. But I think it's definitely happening, and it's improving that quality aspect. I just think more focus needs to go there.
And how do you feel? I know for a while it really struggled with being, subjective versus objective. And I
Mm-hmm.
know itters and eckers with the recalibration
Mm-hmm.
every
Mm-hmm.
year, every so often it is, try to address some of that. Do you feel like we're finally getting to a spot where it is pretty objective and that your rankings would be similar to someone else's rankings if they were to come in and observe the same classroom?
I think it definitely the subjectiveness of it um has gotten better based on like we have to recertify to make sure we're doing this. We have to continue to recertify, and then based on um the things that we're seeing and even writing down, you can see what the observer's view is. What are you actually looking for? And so that documentation supports those views, and so you can see if it's subjective or objective, and what lens that they're looking from, right? Because as observers or coaches, you kind of know everything, like bits of licensing, what something should look like, but you have to remember what you're looking for in this specific connotation. And so those notes and making sure you're writing things down that you see allows it to be more credible, and that you're quantifying the right things. And so the making sure that we are continuing to keep our certifications relevant and keeping them up to date, I think is a definite benefit of using the class tool. And like you said, Ickers and Eckerts, you have to do it with somebody else, to make sure you are reliable consistently. And though it can be kind of daunting because it's like, are we really seeing the same things? That I think it's important to do it. It's just a self-check. Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think you're right. If people are going through the process and committing to quality, you owe them the
Mm-hmm.
feedback. You owe them that written commentary saying,
Mm-hmm.
here's where I think you can improve. I mean, and it's hard, but it's not personal, right? I mean,
Right.
none of this stuff is really personal. The eye on the
Mm-hmm.
prize here is let's make this the best quality environment we can for our young
Mm-hmm.
students so they
Mm-hmm.
excel in life. So I
Mm-hmm.
hopefully, and I'm sure people do get a little feelings hurt once in a while, but trying to keep it in perspective of why we're doing this and the
Mm-hmm.
overall outcome, I think is important to some degree too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then when you're giving that feedback, making sure it's just like with anything in life. When you're giving feedback, if especially if it's not as positive or not as happy joy feedback as they may think, it's important to do it with the perspective of growth, and not just you're not doing this, you're not doing this. Just like when we talk with our students, we have to give them information in bits that they can receive it. So if you watching the class, I mean, you're seeing something that is totally everything the day was wrong. That's not how you lead, right? You lead with compassion. You lead with compassion, and you say, I was glad to come and see your program today." Right? Even if the whole program was not good, that's how you lead. "I was glad to come and see it." Right? That changes starts to shift the conversation when you have to let them know these are the things that we can improve on. And it's just the delivery is so crucial and important, that you deliver it with uh the impact of growth versus what you didn't do correct. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that reinforcement as opposed to punitive or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, I think does go
Mm-hmm.
a long way. And I'm a little curious. I mean, you offer such a range of services. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
teacher of observation, evaluation, teacher training and workshops, classroom atmosphere, which is a big
Mm-hmm.
deal, of course. Student engagement, we've talked about, leadership development, knowing what lens you're looking through, engaging with different generations. I mean, you have so much that you consult with and help
Mm-hmm.
folks with. If I can put you on the spot, and this is probably going to be difficult, but what would you say is maybe the one thing? I can't do them all, but I can maybe do one thing in the next week or month. what should I focus on for my program to really increase my overall satisfaction, my quality, my happiness levels in my program? What's one thing I should think about?
So, as the leader of the program, the one thing that you can do to improve your program to start, like work on this month, I would say, is your relationship with your staff. And I choose that one because everything stems from the head down, right? If my staff are happy, if they are in a place where they're comfortable, that even when they're not happy, they can come to me and let me know, okay, I'm struggling. I'm not happy doing this, and this, or I'm having a challenge with my coworker, or we have if the staff have that ability to come to me when they're happy and when they're not happy, guess what? My classrooms are now happy. And my students feed off of my teacher's energy, right? And so that impacts how much quality can even be in the classroom. Even if it's they're doing a curriculum and they're having trouble asking those challenging questions, my staff, I can support them in their curriculum development to write the questions down ahead of time. So when they're in the moment, they don't have to think about it. They can see what they're supposed to ask, and then it will become a habit of those kind of quality questions. So I would say the first thing as a leader, your connection with your staff is the most important because it filters your center. It trickles down. Your staff talk to your families. They talk to your parents, right? And so if parents sense that the staff aren't happy, will they actually be happy bringing their students there? You may never know how they feel because you don't know that your staff aren't happy. So I would say as a leader, the first thing you have to do is understand or get to know your staff, and not in a we're friends way, but in a way that I want to see you thrive. I want to see you do your best. I'm here to support. How can I help you?
Wonderful. Well, certainly something that should be top of the list for sure. And
Yes.
it all starts at the top, as you
Hmm.
mentioned. It's amazing how many owners or how many directors, I don't know if they just don't appreciate the role they play or the tone they set in their programs, but
Hmm.
it is palpable when you walk
Yes.
into a program, isn't it? I mean, it's really amazing to me. You walk in and you meet that leader, and you pretty much know this is either going to be a really good experience or
Hmm.
we might have some work to do here,
Yes,
right?
yes. They really set the tone for the environment. So I've been in programs where I've had to do just some visits unannounced, and um you can tell when the director's there, it's almost like a calm. The staff are calm.
Yeah.
And if I'm in the classroom doing in classroom and I shift to another classroom, I can tell when the director has come because the energy is different, right? And so you don't really know it unless you have that relationship with them to understand how you impact. Mhm.
So I know we have a lot of students that listen, and I always like to ask at least one question, just kind of about the future leaders that are out there.
Okay.
Certainly, you've got a wealth of information and knowledge and expertise here, so I'd be really remiss if I didn't take the opportunity here. So, talking to the next generation of leaders, what are the skill sets? What are the traits? What are the characteristics? What are the things I need to be thinking about learning and developing now to kind of get them to that next level? What do you see that really makes the effective leader? What should we be spending our time thinking about kind of to advance our career and get to that next stage?
So for those emerging leaders, welcome. I'm excited for you. This is definitely when you think of leadership, you should think of the word um serve, right? Even though you may be at the top, you are serving, right? And take it from the lens of that. And you should also, I would say, serve, though. That's the first word you should think of when you think of leadership. How can I serve? Right. And then the second thing you should make sure that you are in tuned with is emotional intelligence. Right, in tuned with emotional intelligence. And you can do a deep dive into what that actually is, but I will give you the cliff notes. Emotional intelligence is in the short form of translation is making sure that you are talking to the audience that can receive it, in lack of a better words. So you are not if you see that somebody is confused or doesn't know really what to do, you aren't giving them piling more work on them, giving them more challenges. You're asking them, oh, okay, so walk me through what you know, right? You're leaning into what they understand so that you can help them out of their confusion. So emotional intelligence is just being in tune with the next person's feelings, understanding the next person's thoughts, as opposed to just projecting your own onto someone else. So I would say do a deep dive of emotional intelligence. That's so important. It's like reading the room. It would be like going into a funeral. If you were going into a funeral and you dancing and partying, like, oh yeah, it's like, wait, this is not the space or the time for that, right? It's reading the room and going into a space where other people are, so that you can see them and then reacting to their emotions.
We go. I certainly don't want to see anyone dancing at the funeral.
Right. Exactly.
I think there's a meme about that somewhere. I'll have to look that up.
Right.
Well, I know you do a tremendous amount of work. How do folks get a hold of you? How do programs engage you? Kind of what does that process look like? What's the best way to get in touch and find out how you can really benefit their program?
So I can be reached in a multiple way. So you can reach out to me via my website, which is Divine Illumination Agency LLC, just like it's spelled, DIVINE Illumination ILLUMINATION Agency AGENCY LLC.com. Or you can shoot me an email at carlinavaden@yahoo.com. But either way, either one of those, I will definitely get your email. I will get whatever messages that you send, and I will contact you. And on my letterhead, when I send you an email, or on the letterhead, my number is there. My number will be there as well. So if you want to reach out to me via phone, I can be reached at 301-996-2200.
Wonderful. We'll make sure we put all that in the show notes for everybody so it's easily accessible and clickable.
Thank
Got a
you.
lot of good travel coming up. We hope to see you. Well, I think we will see you, right, in the Virgin Islands in
Yes,
October.
yes, you definitely will see me there. I'm excited. I'm excited in October to be going to some warm weather.
Yes, you and me both. So we thank you very, very much for coming on today. It's a very engaging discussion. I actually learned a lot. So thank you for sharing and being so generous with your time. I'll give the final remarks, the closing here to you. Any last words you'd like to convey to everybody?
Thank you first. Thank you for having me. Thank you for this opportunity. I love speaking to our community about what I'm most passionate about. One of the things I'm most passionate about. I love to see our community, our career thrive, and I want to see our children be the best, having that best experience. If you think back as an adult, like, what was my best experience as a student? And it's always that one teacher that you connected with. So everybody can be that one teacher for somebody. So that's what I'll leave you with.
Very true. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody who's watching and listening at home. We greatly appreciate it. A lot more awesome, interesting, engaging guests coming up on the Early Childhood podcast here. Thank you. If you like this podcast, please don't forget to review us. 5 stars only, as they say, right? But for Early Childhood Chats podcast. This is Andy saying thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one. All right.